Thank you so much. Appreciate that. You will find out that we tried to compliment everyone at some point in time. So by the time we finish this session, everyone in the room, we will know who you are. If we have a microphone that toward the end, we're going to make sure we can pass that around to everyone. Yeah, we only have one though. Okay, no, that's fine. Just one. It's going to be a speed game. That's why I asked for everyone to become a little intimate. And we'll do that so we can get to know you a little bit better as well, too. Okay? I'm going to skip through what this session is about for the reading part and go straight to the bottom. I'm going to introduce our guest today. We're going to have an interactive conversation to give you some feedback to take back to your respective places. For the most part, in the 20th century, let me pause and let me do my self-due diligence. Cassius F. Buds, CEO of Capital Fortitude Business Advisors, based here in Atlanta with offices in Orlando, Florida, and Washington, D.C. Former SBA regional administrator with the Obama administration. We had the highest performing business efforts in the history of the Small Business Administration. I say that not because it wasn't about myself, it was because we're collective individuals together to help us make some really good things happen, partnerships such as with Mr. Boston, and that's what we're looking to give back. So here, also I'm a board member with Operation Hope, but here to help you to really integrate our conversations to have some positive feedback to our communities. For the past, most of the 20th century, a janitor and a lawyer could earn more living in New York than in the South. As people move, they decrease the labor supply in the regions they left, driving up wages there and tightening them up in markets they moved to. This effect increased wage growth in poorer areas faster than it did in rich areas for much of the latter part of the 20th century. But over the last 20 years, this trend has slowed, meaning people are not migrating fast enough to richer areas to bring wages down, and populations are not declining fast enough in poorer areas to bring wages up. This has led to a stratification of America. Our conversation today will be with experts, subject matter experts, enthusiasts, and hopefully will have an opportunity to ask them questions to help to change this trend. Starting with my far left and coming to my right is Mr. Dallas Tanner. He is the Executive Vice President and Chief Investment Officer of Invitation Homes. Let's give him a round of applause. Next is Ms. Maggie Linton, who is actually also a pioneer in regard to media and radio. She is a familiar force on Sirius Radio. She's an icon and she's a friend. We're glad to have her here today. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Maggie.
Thank you.
Y'all can do a better job of that. Come on, come on.
I know you hear too much from me during this forum,
That's
so
okay.
it's okay.
We want to clap for you in a minute. To my left is Mr. Sal Mendoza, who's Senior Vice President of Community Reinvestment for City National Bank out of Los Angeles, California.
Correct.
All right. And to our end is last but is definitely not least, from the city of Memphis, Mr. Paul A. Young, who heads up the Division of Housing and Community Development for the city of Memphis, Tennessee. So just to get into it, this is going to be very speedy. This is going to be very fast. The microphone, whoever has the microphone.
It's sitting right over there.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there's. If we will start with our far left and let us know your name and where you're from.
Hello, my name is Maya Megbo, and I am from Georgia.
If you would also just let know your business too, please.
My business?
Yes.
I'm just trying to find out what the Hope Global Forum is all about.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Damani Akil, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, with Transglobal Connections.
All right.
Hi, my name is Cynthia McKnight with my husband Warren McKnight. I am from Eyes on You Productions. I am a film playwright, movie writer, and we're located in Philadelphia, PA.
All right, hometown. All right.
Hi, Andrew Grayott. I live nearby in Tucker, Georgia. I'm with City Retail Services.
All right.
I'm Brenda Morant, here in Atlanta, Georgia, with the International Women's Think Tank.
My name's Autumn Foster. I'm with Choir Consulting and Space in Birmingham, Alabama.
My name is Celeste Pryor, and I'm Maggie Linton's sister.
All right.
My name is Paulina Guzman. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I represent the City of Atlanta Mayor's Office of International Affairs.
Vanessa Ibarra, I am from Atlanta, Georgia, also representing the Mayor's Office of International Affairs.
I'm Calvin Boston, CEO of the MoneyWise TV network.
Sonia Brown, I reside here in Atlanta, and I'm with Synchrony Financial.
I'm Dale Prescott, currently living in Jonesboro, Georgia. I am a concerned member of the community.
All right.
Hi, my name is Nicole Williams. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm Managing Director of Sagiton LLC. It's an information technology company.
Hi, I'm Robin Bradford, session leader here, 4th year here at Hope. My business is the Power People Brokers, and I started another company called Real Women, Real Talk.
Hi, my name is Yolanda Wallace. I am from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm here with Robin.
All right.
But you are somebody.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Melissa Haas. I'm just helping to facilitate from Atlanta and with SunTrust Bank.
Hi, my name is Natalie Reed. I'm a State Farm agent owner here in Austell, Georgia.
Hello, I am Dr. Walter Sims, the Minister of Motivation, professional speaker, and life coach.
I am Blossom Martindale, Agency Field Leadership with State Farm Insurance Companies. I recruit, coach, and I'm looking for like-minded folks to be able to create jobs for people in our communities.
All right.
Alistair Edwards, Vice President of Business Solutions for Legal Shield, here from Atlanta, Georgia.
Tracy McCrory, that's Tracy with an I. I'm an agent owner, State Farm Insurance, located in East Point, Georgia.
Hi, my name is Joyce Rogers, and I am a certified life coach under Jehovah Works.
That's right.
Hi, Dawn Moore, Powder Springs, Georgia, Center Dean, DeVry University.
Good afternoon. I'm Deantra Grant. I'm here from Atlanta, Georgia with Internal Revenue Service.
Boy, pick your table. Frank Nolden in Atlanta, Georgia, from the IRS. She's my boss for another day.
Hello, my name is Ellen Miller Mapp. I am an administrator of Claremont Oaks Affordable Senior Housing.
Hi, I'm Arlene Ross, and I'm from here in Atlanta. I'm with the Georgia Micro Enterprise Network, and we are a network that helps entrepreneurs to network.
Right.
My name is Kwabna Boaten with African Diaspora Nation. We are a Pan-African Human Development and Nation Building organization.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nita Star London. I am now residing here in Atlanta, Georgia, by way of Oakland, California, born and raised, and I'm here representing MBL Advisor Group and Visions Development Corporation.
My name is Erica Mitchell. I'm born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. I am here on behalf of Atlanta Board of Education. I'm the board member for District 5.
All right.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Ransom. I'm here from the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland.
So we're going to jump into our discussion. It's important to let you know that everyone here is on the same level, every single person. That means that everyone has input, you have value. We want you all to be engaged in this conversation. We're just happen to be here on the stage to help to facilitate the conversation, okay? Is everyone okay with that? All right. So starting, Dallas, just really the topic itself, migration. Tell us about your area of industry and what you've seen and what you're building, and how can our audience be a part of what you're doing, either from looking to help to cultivate their business, or just to be more involved in what you're doing on a daily basis, see what's taking place with this migration.
Yeah. Yep. First of all, thanks for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here and participate. This is our second year helping John with Operation Hope in terms of these panels. My background on me and my business is, we started a company in college that was focused on low-income housing in the Southwest. And we spent a ton of time putting investors together and finding opportunities where we could buy, fix, and lease, ultimately, affordable housing to folks like many of us. That parlayed itself into a broader single-family business called Invitation Homes. Today we have 80,000 single-family homes across 17 cities here in the U.S., mostly kind of from the West Coast through kind of the southern, southeast part of the country. Today in Atlanta, for example, we have 12,500 single-family detached homes that we lease to working families. And so as you think about that balance and you think about this demographic shift and this urban migration to the suburbs, and it kind of goes back and forth. I have kind of a unique perspective because we look at, roughly on our 80,000 properties, roughly 35% of those will turn every year, meaning that we're going to have a new customer come in. Average length of our customers is right around 3 years in our business. And so as you think about that, you start to see shifts and you start to see the way people are making housing decisions. Now, put that to the side for a second. We've also gone through this, kind of a really bizarre cycle. We had, the recession and the housing crisis called 2008 and 9, but we've been on like a 9 or 10 year run in terms of productivity, job growth, affordability coming back into play, people being able to buy, but we're not seeing that necessarily shift into home ownership. So we are seeing people choose this leasing lifestyle. So from my perspective, I sit back and I think about, what is the quality of choice that people want in terms of housing? And then how do we make decisions or how do we buy product that can fit into that housing continuum? And so there's a couple of interesting statistics that are facing our country right now. There's 65 million people today between the ages of 20 and 35. The average customer in our business is usually around 38 or 39 years old, usually combined income somewhere between 80 and 100,000 for the two working people in that home. So call it $40,000, $45,000 type salaries. But yet this millennial cohort that is between the ages of 20 and 35 are delaying things like getting married, home ownership. They're pushing those life decisions out. I think in the last decade, the average age of couples getting married has moved from 24 to 28 years. That's the single biggest shift in U.S. history. We've never seen that kind of jump in a decade. People's choices are changing. Then you have the pressure to be urban or infill in a market where things are happening. And yet you have kind of that age gap that's shifting to where maybe that first purchase isn't an entry-level home buyer at that point because they have real jobs and maybe they have a child in the city and so they're moving out. So we're seeing a lot of this, and quite frankly, there's been people that have come. I'm going long-winded here, so I apologize. But there are people that are starting to call some of these other urban environments like suburban urban, surban. And Alpharetta is a good example of that here in Georgia, where you're starting to see mixed-use development come into play. People are starting to go vertical in the suburbs. We've never seen that before. Metro Atlanta itself is really unique because you guys have downtown, you have uptown, you have Buckhead, you have the Perimeter District, you have Alpharetta, which is changing now with the stadium in Marietta. It's fascinating to see that you have these kind of different pockets of connectivity.
And so just to let the audience understand, Dallas, he owns the properties. And
well, now the public does. We took the business public last year.
There you go. And your clients actually are housed. You house the clients. Mm-hmm. You have a program to have them to be in a place for home ownership at some point in time, right? Mm-hmm. Could you just elaborate on that just a bit?
Yeah, we have a resident first look program. So as an asset manager, we're constantly buying and selling. So anytime we sell, in theory, we're most likely offering that to the resident as a first look. That's our program. And then we have a couple of things that we've done where we're partnering with different local partners to get people to be credit worthy if they choose to go down that route.
Okay, absolutely. Some folks here from the state of Georgia. I think that kind of goes down some of your areas in which you're playing in that field. Isn't that right? Involved? Georgia, DCA? Yeah. So again, this is what I mean by that. Whatever you do, whatever you think you want to do, whatever you're thinking of you want to be involved with, this is your opportunity to get involved now. These are the decision makers who we're trying to cultivate relationships with. So next year when we come back, we're going to have success stories. And so that's what the part of kind of having us as a group, this group right here. Next year we expect to have success stories next year, okay? I'm going to switch gears right quick over to the city of Memphis. Paul, you have a lot of interesting activity in the city of Memphis, not just politically, but also from the city making different investments. Talk a bit about what's taking place in Memphis and how some of the audience members, you hear the areas in what they're involved with, how can they be involved in what you're doing?
Yeah, so first off, I would say as a city government, one of our primary goals is to ensure that we optimize opportunities for all of our residents. And first and foremost, housing. You have to make sure that housing is affordable and adequate. I often tell people when I go out and speak in our community that we don't have an affordable housing problem. We have a quality affordable housing problem. There are plenty of properties available in the city of Memphis, but would you want to raise a family in them? Are they fit to certain codes? Are they energy efficient? We have a significant poverty issue in Memphis. We have about a 26% poverty rate. We have 650,000 people, so that means that almost 200,000 people are living in poverty. We have a 50% childhood poverty rate. So that means half of the kids living in the city of Memphis are living in poverty. And so if we don't do something to stabilize housing, then we're never going to brighten our future. So we have to come up with alternatives to do that. And so when we start talking about this migration issue, when you look at cities, you have cities where markets were, and it's not even a city, you have sub-markets in cities all across the country that have these same characteristics, but you have a market where the economy works. You can build a house as a builder, you can rent it at a certain rate, and you get a return that's suitable for all of your investors. You have other markets where it's booming, where you can build it and you can gain a lot. You can get a lot of financial gain from that investment. That's what's happening in Nashville. You build it at a certain rate and you can rent it out for $2,000 a unit. If you build that same development in Memphis, you would be able to rent it out for maybe $1,000 per unit. So if you are making an investment decision, which one are you going to pick? You're going to pick the market where you can go and get the highest return. Right. And so in a city like Memphis, what we work to do is try to stabilize markets where the market doesn't work, where there's low opportunities. There are certain sub-markets in Memphis where it costs $75,000 to build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, but you can only sell it for $50,000. Now, any wise investor probably wouldn't take that bet. And so what our goal to do is to work with nonprofit organizations that build housing, and we subsidize that $25,000 increment such that it's a suitable transaction for the market.
Paul, can you say that again and explain it in layman's terms?
I think it's pretty as layman's as you can get. If you build it for $75,000 and you can only sell it for $50,000, then that's not a transaction that most people would make. Right. And so what we do from the city perspective is we try to make an investment with a nonprofit developer who's willing to go in and build it for $75,000 and sell it for $50,000 if we can give them the extra $25,000 to make that number work. And our goal is to try to eventually get it to the point where the market works. You want to get enough concentration of development in these areas such that the numbers begin to change, so that last year you sold it for $50,000, next year you can sell it for $60,000, and ultimately the numbers even out and you have a market that works. And that's what many cities and communities are trying to do in the realm of community development, and it's something that's going to help with this migration issue. What people are doing now is people are deciding where they want to live and they're just going. Yes. And so that's what's happening in the high opportunity markets. They don't care if it costs $2,000 a month to live there. They want to be there. And so we got to find ways to enhance the quality of life in our cities and stabilize these sub-markets where many of our people are not living in quality housing conditions.
And I'd use myself as devil's advocate to hear him say again is that the city will invest in you. I hope you all heard that.
Yes.
You heard it. Okay. The city will invest in you. These are opportunities where you could get involved. How many folks here own, run, operate, or work for a nonprofit? Okay? Opportunities are right here for you in places like Memphis. And we're going to continue to have that discussions in your roundtable discussions and then get the feedback at the end of this session. Come to you, Sal, in 1 second because I want to hear about all the great things that take place in the city of Los Angeles. Maggie has talked to many folks on her radio show over the years, but really from where you sit, she has talked to presidents, governors, senators, CEOs, you name it, Oprah, I can't name all of them. But seeing what you're hearing what you're hearing today, and give us your perspective on how you can give this audience some substance to take back to their respective businesses.
What I'm hearing today, mainly in the DC area, because that's where I operate, DC Baltimore, is way too often the salaries are not equaling to the prices of the homes. And so you see a number of people kind of putting off any type of home buying or going into smaller properties because they just can't afford it. And so often, what I talked about in a panel earlier today is they don't have the financial foundation to get a better rate, to get more money, because they just haven't learned how to save money. And that face needs to change. That's what needs to change in housing all the way across the country. We hear about young people in particular, but even older people who are still struggling and living in an apartment. But yet they got a big car outside. It's like, why you got a Mercedes-Benz sitting outside of an apartment? You know, the payments on it, you know, when they say only $5.99 a month, and I go, I'm sorry, if you've got to pay $5.99 for a car that's going to depreciate every time it sits out there, why are you not getting a payment on a car for $199 and saving the rest of that $400 if you've got that kind of money to buy a house? Because the house will mean more, and we have to change the perspective within the young people about what and how to save, the priorities, because I'm telling you, having a house makes a big difference. And we all know that. It changes our psyche, our perspective. And I have to give a shout out to my mom and dad years ago. My dad was a retired master sergeant from the Army. He was a barber, but he invested in real estate. My dad was flipping houses in the 50s. That wasn't what it was called then. But he had the perspective and made it possible for people who may not have been able to get a loan from the bank or something for them, because he knew that they had jobs. He made a difference, and that's one of the things that we as community people can help set up. That's what HOPE is doing. That's what Operation HOPE is doing. That's what so many programs can be done there, and that's what I hear from people all the time. Let's make a difference. Let's open the door for people to get a different perspective of how they use their money and to raise neighborhoods up again. You know, we can change the way a neighborhood looks just by building the housing that's there.
Changing the housing.
Changing the housing perspective.
You know, this is one of those things that have never changed. I've heard someone say before, one thing they're not building anymore is land. It's just not happening unless you're going to go to the moon. And I don't think we've gotten there yet to build property on. But you talked about the financing piece of it. Sal, this is directly in your ballpark, the financing aspect with City National Bank in Los Angeles. Please talk a bit about the financing piece of housing and how it's changing in today's time, and what can we do to help to be a part of that change in a positive way?
Thank you, Cassius.
Yes.
Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about what I do. I run the Community Reinvestment Department for City National Bank. City National is a $49 billion commercial bank with primarily operations in New York, Nevada, Atlanta, Georgia, Nashville, Tennessee, and we just recently opened an office in Washington, D.C. We just recently, just this year, entered the mortgage business. Prior to that, we're strictly a commercial bank, but I'm very knowledgeable about the housing industry in California and in the city of Los Angeles and in the county of Los Angeles. Affordable housing in the county and in the city of Los Angeles is an absolute crisis right now. There just simply isn't enough affordable housing. Just to let me give you some very basic statistics. California population is 40 million as we speak. LA County, 11 million residents. City of Los Angeles, 4 million. The median age in California is 36 years of age. In the County of Los Angeles, 36 years of age. In the City of Los Angeles, 35 years of age. There are 12,896 households in California. 12 million. 3,293,000 households in LA County, 1.3 million households in the City of Los Angeles. The median income at the state level is $64,000 a year. At the county level, $59,000 a year. City of Los Angeles, $52,000 a year. Median home value, and this is already 2 years ago. You can add probably another 10 or 20% to that. Median home value at the state level, $449,000. LA County, $497,000. City of Los Angeles, $542,000.
And Sal, just to make sure I'm making correct, median means that's just the average, right?
No.
No? What does that mean?
Big difference between average and median. Median basically is when you take a census tract and you look at half of the property values that are at a certain value, like if you have $1 million property, $500,000 property, the median price is $500,000. Half are above that, half are below that.
Right.
The average is when you add 500 and a million and divide by 2.
Okay.
So the median generally is more accurate in terms of reflecting values. So the story here is that low and moderate income families in Los Angeles County or in the city of Los Angeles are completely shut out of the housing market. They simply cannot afford it. I happen to be on the board of directors of the largest nonprofit affordable housing in Los Angeles County, Neighborhood Housing Services of Los Angeles County, headed up by Lori Gay. She can subsidize up to $100,000 to help people afford a property. So an affordable property, you know, if you're making $65,000 a year, you can afford, assuming that only 30% of your income is going towards servicing the mortgage, you can afford maybe $250 to $350 with a $100,000 subsidy from LANHS. Lori's got a waiting list of probably about 1,000 families. Wow. There just simply isn't enough affordable housing in California. Let me give you some math in terms of what the expectation or what the need is in California. The need in California right now is about 1 million units of affordable housing. With everything that's coming online over the next 2-3 months, you're talking tops 100,000 units. Wow. Now, when you look at Northern California, the story is even worse. The median price in San Francisco County is $1.1 million. Wow. Now, when you look at renting, the median price in the city of Los Angeles is $1,200 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, if you can find one. Wow. In Northern California and San Francisco, the median price to rent a one-bedroom apartment is $4,000 a month. So when you look at California, California is certainly is the golden state, but you literally have to have gold to be able to live there. You know? But yet at the same time, when you look at what's happening in the internal migration of what is happening, California now, out of the 40,000 residents, the majority are Hispanic. As of about 6 months ago, 17.1 million are Hispanic. Kind of the same in the city of Los Angeles and in the county. Half of the population there is Hispanic. 26% of the population is white. The African-American population, I grew up in a ghetto in Los Angeles where it was 90% African-American at the time. This goes back to the late 60s and early 70s. The African-American population now in the county is below 10%. We don't know where the African-American population is going. Obviously, they're leaving. They're going primarily to the Inland Empire, but most of them have moved out of California because of the tremendous gentrification that's taking place now, not only in Southern California, but in Northern California it's even worse. And that is being driven by the wealth that's been created over the last 10 years by the technology companies, which obviously started in Northern California, but now has permeated into Southern California, and low and moderate income families are being gentrified. I was talking to Ellen, who works in the senior citizen field. Even Skid Row in LA, where all the drug addicts and all the pimps and all the drug pushers used to hang out, you should see Skid Row today. There was a picture earlier this morning, that futurist guy that showed, I forget the name of the community, but it was like day and night. Well, the cheapest converted loft in Skid Row today is $400,000. And there's a waiting list. So again, migration in LA, yes, it is taking place, but it's being driven by jobs that basically pay a wage that's below the affordability index, if you will, to afford a home, even to rent a home. So it's a real crisis. And let me stop there.
No, please. And this has been very insightful because it really tells that when you look in your backyard, you think it's bad. I mean, I don't know if I can afford to fly to California and stay 2 days. But I want to actually go back to Dallas because this is part of the industry which you're in now. You know, from where we sit and what we're talking about today, as I mentioned, you're helping folks to kind of realize their housing dreams. What have you seen as far as the folks who've been involved in your company, where are they going? Where you know, you're out west. You're in Phoenix, right?
Yeah,
So-
well, we're everywhere. I mean, we have homes in Los Angeles. I'm very familiar with some of the housing shortage that Southern California feels. We have 5,000 properties in that community of 19 million that encompasses, you know, call it Greater Los Angeles. What's interesting to me, and Sal, I really want your opinion on this too at some point today. You know, you have a supply-demand imbalance. If you just look at what just the math tells you, for the next decade, we're going to need 12.5 million more households in this country. Just based on, as morbid as this sounds, people passing away and that younger generation coming through. We're not building enough supply today. We as a country, we put out about 1.3 million to 1.4 million new housing units this year. We need about 1.6 million, 1.7 million just to keep up with normal household formation. So it's going to become a real big problem over the next decade, more so for cities like Los Angeles than it currently is. Some of this comes back to public-private partnerships. Some of it comes back to, and this is just an opinion, I wouldn't say this is doctrine, but I would just say we also need to elect city leaders that are pro-growth, pro-urbanization, pro-housing permits. Now, that can be a bad word depending on which side of the aisle you sit on, but in a market like Southern California, for example, it's very hard to develop new housing units, next to impossible. You have the EPA, you have every other, you know, local and state municipal authority that make it very difficult for a home builder. Back to our point in Memphis, where it costs too much to build a housing unit today in the state of California. Then you look at markets like Atlanta, which is the flip side. It's very easy to develop here. You guys have had this tremendous sprawl, and you've seen Metro Atlanta grow like a weed. You've had favorable job growth and all the other things, and affordability's remained intact. Right. So generally speaking, more so than maybe in LA or other parts of the country. So my feeling is a little bit of a mixed bag. I think there's things we need to do to create programs and subsidies that help promote homeownership. But what drives people to want to live in certain areas are the economics and the job growth and the opportunity, the school districts. So what we see in our business is we get families into our homes that typically can't afford to live in that suburb because they can't afford the down payment. They can't afford to live in Johns Creek because they can't buy the home here in northern Atlanta. But they can hack a $1,600, $1,700 lease payment without having to put that down payment down. And then there's agencies that will help subsidize that as well. So it's about finding and striking that balance. There's never one solution one way or the other. We have to work together, public-private, to come up with solutions, and we have to elect leaders that see, and I'll use California as another example. There's a big push right now for rent control in Southern California. Ask the people in Northern California how rent control's gone for them in terms of bringing in new development. The moment you pass that type of legislation, generally, it kicks the developers out. They're not going to want to come into Southern California. What you got to probably start to look at, as unpopular as it is in Southern California, is Prop 13, which is the property tax issue. Yeah. In that state, when you buy a property, your property taxes only grow by 1% per year. That's the maximum. So you've had, think about it, families, developers, and you look at a lot of these people that have lived in their homes for 30 and 40 years. There's nothing wrong with that, but the property tax level never resets, which then hurts LA County and some of these other markets. So you got to start with the rules of engagement first. Right. It's a common sense approach.
What we're going to do here, we're going to ask you all to, at your tables, to come up with some solutions, some real life solutions that you think could be beneficial and something that you think can make changes. And then we're going to have a hard stop at your table at 3:30. And then we're going to come back and have Maggie, Sal, we're going to have Paul to give you the responses about your solutions. And then Dallas, we'll wrap up with you closing that at the end. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, so we have our leaders at our table. If you raise your hand, if you already identify yourselves. So we're going to take this time as 3:10. By 3:25, start wrapping it up. And just before 3:30, we're going to begin. And if you have to leave, please don't leave before getting us your ideas. We really want these. We got, yes, okay, yes. So the folks on the other end, who just joined us, you mind coming over and joining us in the back and being a part of the solution? Thank you so much. So we're going to just take the next 15 to 20 minutes. All right. Okay, everyone, we're going to start to bring your discussions to a close. Our facilitators are going to, Trudy and Melissa. Okay, Melissa are going to take your information, put it on a board, and then we're going to have close. Ding, 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 dot, 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 ding, 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 ding. Hold on. And Nicole, hold on.
If you can hear him, raise your hand.
There you go. Oh, that's how you do it? Oh, thank you. Let's get you a round of applause. Thank you. Okay.
The way she color coordinated with the seats in here.
Okay. What we have here, again, is opportunity to take your ideas and put them on the board 1 through 5. And I think we're going to go through, do this in a very expeditious way. Your leader is going to give your information to Melissa. We're going to write your ideas on the board. Please, at this point in time, take 60 seconds or less to do so. After you do that, we're going to go in order of having Paul, Sal, and we're going to have Dallas to close us out. And then we have some last words from Maggie. We will. But let's start with your idea, starting with table number 1. 60 seconds or less. Time's counting.
Sorry.
No problem.
Great table, great input. We're looked at taking rural areas and making it a micro-urban environment, pulling in transportation to that, making that transportation model maybe reflecting bicycles opposed to traditional trains and things of that matter. And then we also looked at tiny homes, shared home communities that's affordable and creates a real home association at a low cost, if not a cost at all.
Okay. All right.
That was a great idea.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Table number 2.
Google Bill Gates' solar city he's doing in Arizona, along the same lines of that.
All right, good afternoon again, everybody. 3 bullets. 1, we have a pre-prep piece, changing the mindset of our leaders, having more leaders voted in that are a little bit more sensitive to the needs of the community, changing the mindset of people that are looking to become homeowners. Second is education, an education piece, and that falls into 3 categories: preparation, protection, and maintenance, teaching why owning a home is so valuable. And the third piece is sweat equity, initial investment, accountability program, and program to include all parties. And again, that's dealing with maintenance as well.
All right.
We had a great table. It was 4 of us, and we were in it to win it.
All right. Table number 3.
I'm going to move real slow to give Melissa a chance to finish writing all that down.
Okay, great.
Amazing team here. Technology tried to ruin us, but we got it back. All right, so we've got tiny houses, which has already been represented. Incentives, not only for down payment, but also for those that are in subsidized housing, for mortgage payments even, so that if you stay in a community for a certain period of time, that there is some credit that couldn't come back to that homeowner. We also have financial literacy programs that are no longer in the high school and middle school levels for children, so re-engaging in those financial literacy programs. And then partnering with profit and nonprofit organizations. The Internal Revenue Service gave us an example of a great one, which is VITA, and that is you've got people that are doing income taxes that are giving back, and you've got people that are getting those refund checks, and as they're getting those checks, how are they investing? So the education, the accountability, but then the support that we need from our private sector to ensure that everyone gets the word out on these programs. Great tape. VITA. Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Table number 4, coming to you.
Thank you. Fabulous ideas from across the global African diaspora, the islands and everywhere. So Peru and, global solutions, global perspective.
You got 20 seconds now.
All right. So most of what we have, we had the tiny homes, holistic development solutions, integrating transportation, renewables, health, safety, and education. That was one. We talked about public policy innovations, just changing the way business is done. We had a session on conscious capitalism this morning, so a shift to more of purpose-driven, meeting people's needs as against hardcore basest form of capitalism. We also looked at building technology innovations. We know about 3D printing of houses, right? So instead of the traditional and conventional models, how do we get into more innovative technology solutions for building? So material science as well as the execution, technology innovations in those areas. Besides that, most of our points are highlighted over there already.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And last but not least, table number 5.
Number 5.
Number 5.
All right, we had a good panel too. They came up with about 6, I think, ideas. One was more focused research as it relates to the community so people understand what's going on. Connected to that was the need for more education, especially so people understand topics like migration and rapid urbanization and what it means to the community residents so they can prepare for it. Marketing affordable housing so people understand how they can access affordable housing in their community. Streamlining the affordable housing process, both for people who want to offer affordable housing and then for people, both renters and for homeowners. And then I think provide help to current homeowners and residents as their communities change, instead of let them always feel like they're a victim. Like when your property value goes up because other people have come in and now they purchase homes. Let's say you're in a community that was at $50,000, $60,000 to buy a home. Now it's up to $200,000, $300,000 to buy a home. Who's there to help the current residents, whether they're a homeowner, deal with the rise in their taxes, or the renter who can no longer live in that community? That we provide more help to those people. And then the last one was the suggestions of helping community organizations. And we have one example in Atlanta where groups are coming together to buy affordable homes now and preserve those homes for other people to buy later.
All right. So we have five bill topics that we're going to take back. This information is going to go back to our board at Operation Hope, and we're actually going to have discussions about these ideas that you have. We're going to use our resources and our relationships to actually try to implement these ideas. So this is not something that's just done in vain. This is actually used live in place to actually help you and to help us and help all of us. And so I just want you all to know that. Starting to our left and coming down this way, Paul, our last words, particularly for some of the solutions that you heard today. Indeed.
All right, really quickly, I just kind of wrote down a quick note on each one. And on the first one, I love the notion of including transportation. I think that's vitally important to make sure that you're connecting the people that will live in homes to resources. On the second one, someone mentioned about leaders, and I think it's important that the leaders of cities and municipalities understand the implications that are associated with development, because in Memphis, we allowed our city to grow extremely big. And we thought that we were going to grow in terms of people, but we stayed the same in terms of people size. So we have a city that's 325 square miles with 650,000 people. Down payment assistance is something that I know a number of cities are doing. We're doing it in Memphis. There was one notion that I think a couple of tables said about tiny homes, and I would just, the one thing to keep in mind is that there's a lot of NIMBYism, not in my backyard, when it comes to tiny homes and container homes and different types of development. So thinking about where those things are located. And then lastly, with regards to research, I think research is vital, being able to quantify what's happening in communities, but also equally important is being able to articulate the research in a way that is not speaking to the academics and the folks that policy wants to get excited about this stuff, but being able to communicate it to the community so that they can use it for empowerment.
All right, Sal.
You know, I would certainly support everything that's already been said, but in addition to that, I would say that my recommendation to underserved communities would be that as you look at home ownership as a traditional method of building wealth, that's absolutely the case. But I think it's also a very slow process, if you will, as well as a very unaffordable process at the present time. My recommendation would be education, because now education is very accessible, more accessible than ever before. I think if you have access to the internet, a lot of even your Ivy League schools are downloading free courses that can really educate you on many different things. And I would also say teaching our young kids how to invest money. how the stock market works. I would say that, just so you can teach the youth in a matter of 6 months how to code and how to make a program, in 6 months you can teach a 15 or 16-year-old how to read a financial statement, how to read a publicly traded company, their market capitalization, their earnings per share, their projected earnings, and how, if they would have invested $10 or $20, how much money they would have made. Because our underserved communities still do not participate in the stock market at the proportional rate that they should because of the lack of education on how it works. So I would say educate your kids on how to invest their money.
Absolutely, absolutely. Paul, your final words.
Yeah, I'd just say financial literacy. I was going to tie into sales. I love what Operation Hope does with the Hope Inside
Dallas,
Centers.
and I looked at Paul.
Oh, no, it's
Dallas.
okay.
That's our
It just makes sense, and I think you got to be anxiously engaged. So, we're having a discussion around why are their demographic shifts slowing down, and in large part is probably because of opportunity, not pulling somebody out of a city into another. And so for that to happen, I think you've got to be active, you've got to be engaged, you've got to give back. You don't have to sit on a panel. You can sit in an Operation Hope Center and teach somebody how to be a mechanic or whatever it is that we're passionate about. And by giving back, I think you always find opportunity. And in there lies the opportunity for others. So that would be kind of my takeaway.
Maggie, our wisdom.
Oh, I'll never live in a tiny home. And let me just start right there. I'm not, millennials seem to think that's great. I get mad when I go to a hotel room and it's too small. So I will not be doing that. But I think that it's really important. Education is one of the themes that has continued to go throughout. And that's one of the things we have to jump in as people who are here right now. Start on your local level. Get your kids involved. Maybe go to a school board meeting and say, let's talk about financial education, because it's not going to get any easier, and it's something we need to learn naturally and as early as possible. Again, I'm lucky my parents taught us early. And, if you got $5 for a gift, $2.50 of it went into the bank. Mm-hmm. Well, not everybody does that. They go, I got $5, I'm going to spend it. Well, now that you get 25 and you're still spending it all, you haven't done anything. Number two, we have to get involved with helping lift people up. And by lifting them up, we have to show an advantage, be the second support system, whatever the case may be. Maybe there is a group out called GuideWell Financial Services. I've had them on a fairly regular basis, who really give classes to people who are going to be doing home buying. And that's one of the things people think they can't because they do not know. And we have to go with the education there. And GuideWell, I know, is in the Maryland area, but I think they're all across the country. But that's something that Operation Hope can do too. And again, I know a lot of the services are there right now, but people don't know. Right. So the word needs to get out. And I'm going to leave it at that, but we all can get more involved in our communities and be loud about it. Mm-hmm. Let's provide what we need for the community, and also public transportation, because it's lacking in so many. My sister lives in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Where she lives, you can't get a bus to come out there. Yeah. And she lives in a good neighborhood, right in back of a golf course. No public transportation. We have to think about those who do not have cars to be able to get someplace. I can't even get on a metro. Well, I can get on a metro, but it only works during commuter times. But to catch a regular train, I got to go 15, 20 miles outside of my way. So, and I live in a good area. Mm-hmm. So good public transportation has to be out there, and I think that's one of the things that we are also failing in, really, really failing in. And I can't remember the name. The name of the book is Move, and it's by Rosamond. Can't think of her last name right now, but she talks about the lack of public transportation that is all throughout this country. And that's one of the things we also have to correct. You build the transportation, people will be there.
All right. So you've heard it from some pretty savvy subject matter experts, some good stories, some challenging stories, but also some stories of hope. And knowing that you actually are contributing and helping us to make this change. This is what we do here at Operation Hope. These ideas, again, are taken back to our board. We discuss them. We give them out to the policymakers to help them make these changes, because this is what you are actually seeing, and we're actually making certain that you get a chance to talk about that. We actually have one of our success stories here today. If you don't mind, just stand up and introduce yourself to everyone. Oh, you have to turn around. Yes.
Joyce.
Come on, Joyce.
I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Just let us know your name. Just give us your name and let us know where you're from.
Hi.
And
My
give
name
about
is
30 seconds.
Joyce Rogers. I'm here. I'm from Maryland. Landed here. Actually, I landed here from the illness. I was visiting and got sick and ended up being stuck here. Not stuck because I love it. I told him I'm not going back. Yeah. Anyway, for the 30 seconds, I believe that, seriously, we have the answer to all the things that we heard discussed under the umbrella of Operation Hope. We really do. But what I think we really, really need is those boots on the ground. We really need people on the ground that has a sincere connection to the vision that can also dialogue and explain the vision. And that way we can make these things manifest. I see we have the solution, so I'm happy everyone is here, and I'm looking for greater and greater things to happen. I really am. Thank you so much.
I would tell you that Joyce actually had a challenging time. She ran into a health challenge. She lost everything. Everything. And with the folks here at Operation Help, she heard John speaking during his Facebook Live.
Yes.
And she was inspired by what he had to say. Our folks from Hope reached out to Joyce, helped to put her and her family back in a place so she's back on her feet.
Yes.
Her credit score is out the roof now.
Yeah, come on
and
now.
she is doing well, so she deserves a round of applause. Congratulations, Joyce.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And when Joyce finished up today, I wanted to say amen.
Amen. That's right.
So amen to you, Joyce.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today, and we appreciate your participation.